Welcome to Sasquatch and Sourdough, the podcast where we embark on a journey into the depths of the unknown.
The mystery of life.
Weaving together threads of ancient scripture.
What do you mean, biblical?
Tales of high strangeness.
Tell them about the Twinkie.
Whether you're a seeker of truth,
We believe it's the heart of the house.
or simply hungry for a good story,
What about the Twinkie?
Sasquatch and Sourdough invites you to join us on a journey of discovery, wonder, and deliciousness.
They feel your methods, your theories are...
Spooky.
So grab your backpack, sharpen your senses,
Do you think I'm spooky?
and prepare to explore the sacred mysteries of our highly strange world like never before.
And that is the whole problem with aliens.
Well, welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I am your host, Christina, and I am joined remotely by my beautiful best friend, Crystal.
Ready?
Yay! We're back. We took a couple week break, I think after our Sleepy Hollow episode, because everything happened. Like, I got sick, and then I had family in town, and then I got sick again. So, and I'm still sick.
Who'd you have in town? Your mom?
My mom, yeah.
Oh.
But then it was just like activities, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's the beginning of like the holiday season, and I feel like we just start as soon as Halloween's done, we just go right into everything.
Thanksgiving.
And I haven't seen I know, I can't wait. I haven't seen you since book club.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Crystal puts on an amazing spread for our book club.
Oh,
It's,
thank you.
A bunch of friends, and we get together, and I don't read any of the books ever. I'm just there for the for the hangout, for the soup. Crystal made an amazing Hungarian mushroom soup.
Yes, Hungarian
Ah.
mushroom soup.
That's so good. It's like
Every
the
time I
perfect
looked up, every time I looked up mushroom soup, that was what came up. So I decided to do it. It's a spin on my traditional mushroom soup.
It's so good.
Really.
And then I made book club really awkward because I started talking about MK Ultra.
Nobody has any idea what that is. Well, the book I picked was about vampires, and everyone hated that. So, you know, it's my vampires.
And I felt bad. I was going to read it. And then I didn't read it. And then they were talking. I can't remember what happened, but I think I was trying to do like, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, vampires, because I'm so stuck in this world, like this weird cryptid world. So I'm just like, oh yeah, vampires. Well, actually. And then I did some like weird tie to MK Ultra, and everybody, it was like crickets. I'm like, oh.
You want to talk about
Okay.
vampires?
And then I think I tried to like spin it around to like literary criticism, and it just made it even like nerdier and worse. And I was like, you know what? This is why I just don't belong in society.
Well, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the news right now. I kind of wanted to bring that up.
Oh
You
my
hear about
gosh.
that? Underwater
Yes.
UFOs. That's all I've been reading about today.
It's so much. It's like
Mhm.
I feel like my every feed is just saturated with that sort of like content. Like just because that's like what's happening right now. We have another like congressional disclosure hearings.
Have you ever seen The Abyss, the movie from the 90s? It was an underwater alien base.
Yeah.
And I forget the guy. I forget his name. He was a major actor, and he was under the water, and he was like dying. And they were exploring the underwater base, and they thought that these aliens were like evil or mean. But he was like literally drowning, and the aliens came and saved him and like took him into like this little underground like bubble where they gave him oxygen, and they brought him back to life, and they sent him back up to the surface.
And they
It's
helped
really
him.
neat. It's a really
Aw.
good movie. So we've always known about him. Just now we have disclosure.
I know. I feel like that's ruining the mystery.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we'll ever really know all of it.
No.
But at least they're saying, you know, something.
Something out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. It's like good to get it on the record, but I don't know. Part of me is just like, I don't want them to be real, because then now we have to number one deal with them, and then like number two we have to think like, how do you wrap your mind around that? You know?
I think a lot of people are so desensitized to all of these things now, and like all of the reaction videos that I'm seeing are people like, do I have to work tomorrow? Do I still have to pay taxes? I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have proof? Can we see a picture? No, you don't have proof? Okay, then shut up.
I feel like until they're walking, right. Until they're like walking around and we have to like really deal with things. But I feel like we all need just like a brain break from all that, because it can be overwhelming. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in this space, get like your feed is oversaturated with it, and then you're creating content about it, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, I haven't like gone outside and seen the actual planet that I live on, because I'm like, so I got my head in like the alien cloud, you know?
Yeah.
So when we last spoke and had an actual episode, we were talking about Sleepy Hollow, and you made the connection of portals, I think, or something. Where did you want to pick up?
It's the maidens that the Native American man had seen dancing on the rock, and how he married one of them, and when she disappeared, she had lost time and didn't realize how many years had gone by. Her hut was gone, her child was dead, her husband was dead, and she thought it was just like a couple of hours. So that, to me, is what tied in the fairies. So when you go into the fairy portals, you lose time, and people will go in and come back like from missing, and they haven't changed at all, but the world has changed. The world has aged and gone forward, but the person that disappeared into this portal comes back, and they're exactly the same age as they were when they disappeared. There are a ton of missing 411 stories, actually, of people that have gone missing and returned, and they have not aged.
Yes. Yeah. I just watched the belief poll. Yeah.
This is real stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's all around the national parks, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's connected to the portals that are within forests. You know, you're not going to find a portal just like hanging out in your back. Well, maybe you might, but I mean, for the most part, portals are like hidden in like forest or in the ocean or places that aren't like easily accessible. So when people go missing in the forest, I think what's happening is they're going into portals. Yeah. And they don't necessarily always come back, but when they do, they don't remember where they were. They don't remember how long they were gone. Sometimes they have crazy stories about interacting with like beings, whether they be like gray aliens or Bigfoot creatures. They come back with stories, you know?
There's crazy accounts. So I wanted to, when I was kind of doing my research, I found, so there was a belief hole episode, a couple episodes, I think, on fairies. And that's exactly like what they were saying, is that people like, there's an account of like a guy walking in the woods and actually found like a kind of like a portal sort of, I guess it was like almost like a shimmering.
Yes.
Like something was like shimmery. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And out of the portal came like multiple Bigfoot creatures. And so the guys on Belief Hole were joking like, oh, look, the Bigfoots are actually like getting together and doing something. Like, you know.
They went on a bear hunt.
And they were really, I'm going to put it in the episode because it's such a funny, they were just like really funny about it. Like, oh, can you imagine like what their names might be? Like, what if it's just a bunch of Bigfoots with like Bill and like Tristan?
Bob.
Go guard the portal.
Get back to your job, Kevin.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone got through again. But my mind always goes back to just anytime I'm in the woods. I mean, I can easily get, unless I really know where I'm going, I never go off trail. I don't know if you do. I know we talked to Alex Shea about that. Like her experiences were all off trail. But I rarely go off trail. Yeah.
I have no sense of direction. I would be lost for the rest of my life. I would be a missing 411 case.
Okay, you want a case in point? Let me show you.
Yes.
Okay, so the website is live. I've been putting in little accounts and things like that. Please send in all of your experiences. So I said to Rob, I was like, well, can we put like a compass on the website so people know like north, south, east, and west? And he's like, Christina, pretty much everybody knows. Like, so he refused to do that. So this is what I did.
Except for me.
Oh, hold on, let me get it. I made a post-it.
Okay.
Here it is. Look, see, I have a post-it of north, south, east, and west.
Aww.
So, look, I have to
Help
put that on my
yourself.
monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Dear Lord, help me.
But
don't
how
know
much
any
is that going to help you if you fall into an anomaly where there is no sense of direction and true north doesn't exist anymore because now you're in another plane of existence?
Or I'm
Right?
so lost in the woods that I have no idea
Or true
like,
north.
where true north ever was and didn't pay attention, and I have
a compass. Even if you have a compass, it doesn't always
like
work.
spinning out of control.
Yeah. I'm thinking about
Blair Witch Project.
or magnetic pole anomaly. Yeah.
Remember in Blair Witch Project, how annoying was that part when they lost the map?
Oh, and then
Remember
I
that?
threw it in the river.
I threw that map in the river. Oh my god, I was just like, I need to leave. I am so done with this movie, and I don't care what happens to any of these characters.
I love the Blair Witch Project. I've probably watched the movie like 100 times. I love it.
Oh man. They seriously, but that brings us back to like the fear factor, right? Like I would be terrified if I were off trail somewhere, like completely. I hear these accounts all the time, like listening to every podcast, like someone being really terrified in the woods, and people. What gets me is the people that actually know where they're going, like experienced hunters, things like. I just heard something about that the other day, like a very experienced hunter completely got off trail and was like missing for days. Like,
wow. Yeah, there was one just the other day. I don't really remember, but it was like two experienced hikers that had went missing together. I don't even remember where, but I see stories like you said like that every single day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had somebody write in about it.
Yeah, but I guess that's where like the whole fairy portal thing comes from. Is that people have to explain it in whatever way they can. So these things have always existed, I think. And in like the ancient times, it was, I guess it's fairies. Today I guess it's aliens. I guess it would be whatever your brain can like comprehend is what you're going to say it is.
I just love that like in a lot of these, just kind of, I mean, you can go and search like any sort of fairy website. There's a lot of them out there. But what they keep going back to is that a lot of this is just, people telling these stories from years and years and years of oral history where it's not written down. And it's just that certain areas are known to be like fairy rings, fairy portals, all that stuff. And I was surprised that there's a website called Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, and you can find it on YouTube. It's incredible. She does a great job. I can't remember the host's name, but I just found it like 3 hours ago, and I'm like hooked.
Cool.
And it's people that have real accounts, and it's mostly in the area like Scotland, Ireland, Wales. That sort of area. But there was one. Here we go. I just pulled it up here. So this is actually in her comments section, and this is an account from France. And this writer says, while hiking in the mountain forest in France, me and my family walked on a trail beside the thick forest. Suddenly, we saw a man running from tree to tree following us. Every time we looked, he hid behind the tree, so we started running to get away from that part of the forest because we felt really, really uneasy. When we got back to the car, we drove by a bus stop, and the man stood there, looking at our car. Strange because he was there faster than us. He was tall and thin.
Wow.
Like, so that's insane. So I don't
remember
really know if that's an actual fairy, but
Yeah, but do you remember the story Alex told us in her forest where that man appeared out of nowhere and like tried to scare
Yeah.
her and her son?
Yeah.
Where did that guy come from? Like, that was creepy.
Yeah.
And he said he like
What?
appeared, like he just materialized.
mm-hmm.
That's a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these accounts are, people saying that they something just came, or it was almost like kind of camouflage with the tree, kind of like almost, I don't want to say like a green man, but like you get that sort of like mossy, camouflage, which is just creepy because then it almost is that sort of, it reminds me of Labyrinth.
Well, I was thinking
like when
the Predator. Have you seen
oh gosh,
all the accounts of people seeing creatures that look like the Predator in his cloaking device, where he's just kind of shimmery and blends in with everything? It was like an invisibility cloak or something.
Yeah,
but not quite 100%. Like you could still see like him moving.
I just think that's like just goes hand in hand with all fairy lore. It's just that whole, like lush green Scotland, like the romanticism kind of, of all that. Like when you really think of, I guess, what we grew up with as like fairy, not tales and legends, but just like when you think of fairies, that's kind of where my mind goes, is that imagery.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think I said rowan trees earlier, but it's actually lone hawthorn trees were the
that's
entrances.
right.
They're called fairy trees. And it says, most fairy entrances aren't visible to humans, only if you have the gift.
Ooh.
So I don't know what the gift is, but I guess if you have some kind of certain gift, you can see like a glow around a fairy entrance, like a visible light.
Like in the forest?
Yeah, like in the different entrances. It's like, so the entrances are supposed to be to like the other world.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they call it the other world, and they could be in caves, like you just said, tombs, barrows, forts, and hollow trees and roots. Yeah.
I feel like I just read something about a fort.
Yeah, and it says some places are visible just once every 7 years. For example, the Green Isle is a fairy island that is said to sit right off the Causeway coast near Rathlin Island.
Ooh.
And in early Christian times, the people of Ireland associated anything vaguely pagan in origin to the fairies. And many people believe fairies persist to this day. And a lot of people claim to still see them in and around Ireland.
Yeah.
And it says, here's the fairy forts. It says they're basically remnants of Iron Age medieval ring forts.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like thousands of them still all over Ireland to today. So farmers and landowners plow and mow around them so that they don't like incur the wrath of the fairies. So it's like their entrance. So the people that live around there, they don't mess with these like old ironworks forts, because they don't want the fairies coming after them. So they're supposed to be like benevolent. But if you mess with them, or if you hurt anything in nature or anything around them, if you hurt the trees, if you disturb them in any way, they can be cruel. They can be prankish. They can come after you and terrorize your dogs, your cats, your livestock. They can make your life.
I've heard that.
Yeah, hard. I thought that was interesting.
I've definitely heard that. So I looked up, let me see here. So I'm gonna like butcher all these like Indian names. So there's definitely it's so hard. And I have family like on the Eastern Shore, and I should be able to say like Chinkadee. I can't say anything.
It's hard. I have a hard time saying normal words.
If it's not pronounced for me.
I know.
But there are, so when we were talking, what we kind of like, I think pulled all this together after the Sleepy Hollow episode, and like the portals, and like you were saying that like Pangea, like part of the Appalachian Mountains, like are like connected. after we talked about that, I heard that like 3 other places. It was
Really?
crazy. It was like a crazy synchronicity. Yeah, like it was just weird.
So, yeah, so the continent of Pangea, when it all split, they would have, like, the mountains that are now the Appalachians and the Scottish Highlands, and then another mountain range somewhere like in Africa or something. They were all connected, and they would have been called the Central Mountains of Pangea.
Recording. We had a wild encounter last night when we were trying to record this episode.
Yeah, we were in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden we couldn't hear each other anymore for no reason.
Oh, I think it was the fairies.
We didn't change anything. It just stopped.
It just stopped. It was amazing. So now we're gonna just keep going here, and
yeah. So when I was researching fairies, all of the Irish and like Celtic mythology stories started coming up, and it was funny because I guess the algorithm knew I was talking about Sleepy Hollow, and then it knew that I was talking about Irish mythology, so it just put 2 and 2 together. So the original Headless Horseman is a Celtic myth from Ireland, and his name is the Dullahan.
ooh,
So yeah, and the Dullahan is one of the most well-known tales of Irish mythology. And the story goes that he was a soldier, and he lost his head in battle, so he's doomed to wander the earth looking for souls to take back with him into the underworld. And there's like this really cool tie. It says the Headless Horseman is also the embodiment, and I'm gonna butcher this name, of the Celtic god Crom Dubh. It's spelled D-U-B-H. And I know like Gaelic is just like pronounced differently than like what we would say it, or what it like reads phonetically, so I'm saying it wrong.
yeah.
So sometimes you'll see him on a black horse with a long cloak, just like the Headless Horseman that we know from Sleepy Hollow, and he carries his severed head, and he's looking for souls to take back with him. Other times you'll see him in a black carriage that is supposed to be made out of coffins and like bones and like dead things.
Ooh.
And it's driven by 6 black horses. And so the story goes that if he gets your name on his tongue, like if he gets your name, he will come after you until the ends of the world.
Oh.
He won't stop coming after you once he has your name, you know. And the only way there's not really any way to stop him. Once he has your name, you're doomed.
How does he get your name?
I don't know if it's like someone gives it to him and it's like a curse.
Yeah.
To me it sounds like a curse.
Yeah.
So the way to slow him down though is to give him gold or precious metals, but specifically gold. So if you have gold on you, it's said that if you throw the gold at him, he'll stop and he has to look for the gold. Like, and he won't come after you until he finds the gold. Once he finds the gold, then he'll start chasing you again. So that's the only way to like slow him down.
Is to give him gold.
Throw gold at him.
Throw gold at him.
Like a little leprechaun.
Exactly.
Yes. It says no locked gate will stop him. He makes his way through towns, villages after dark. People hide behind curtains. They say if you look at him, you would be immediately blinded. This is caused by whipping their eyes out with a whip made from a human spine. So that's the other thing he carries around, is a human spinal cord that he uses as a whip to either whip people's eyes out or to whip his horses to go faster. It's like really, really gross, like mythology.
That's really gross.
And he has the ability to speak only once on a journey, and that is to say the name of the person whose life he wishes to take. So after he says your name, that's it. Once the Dullahan states this name, that person's soul is called to death, and there is no defying this call. The Dullahan does this when he stops, and it is then that he will call the name of his victim, and that person will die. Yeah.
So that actually makes sense. If you remember, like the the Sleepy Hollow, like Johnny Depp movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what the stepmother
Yeah.
did.
Well, that's what I was saying. It
Yeah.
could be a curse because she was like the witch that
Yeah.
cursed all of the men that signed that document. And the Headless Horseman couldn't rest until he got every soul that was on that document that she cursed all those men to death.
Ugh.
So I think they're probably taking the
Kinda like a-
Dullahan mythology and mixing it with like
Mhm.
Ichabod Crane, Headless Horseman. I think
Yeah.
that's what that movie is. It's pretty neat.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so I just, like I said, I stumbled upon it because of my algorithm. It, like, I search all these certain things in a specific amount of time, and it just starts putting things together. It's like, oh, you're into Irish myth, and you're into the Headless Horseman. Here's this.
And it doesn't matter like what. I mean, I guess it's because AI is just getting smarter and smarter.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I guess
Yeah.
it doesn't matter like because I think at first it was like, oh, like it's listening, like she's listening to us.
me.
But now it's just like anything you search, anything you text. I noticed that I was texting like a bunch of moms for like birthday party information, and
Mhm.
it was just totally like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this
So,
is what
yeah.
you're looking for.
That's what I was doing. I was like typing in all of those certain search criteria, and that just happened upon my little algorithm. And I was pretty
That's
happy about
crazy.
it. Mhm.
Good. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's just so creepy. But it definitely makes sense with like the I don't know, I guess like the Hessian, like the hell soldier type thing that
Yeah.
you would be calling or whatever.
Mhm.
That's wild. That's
Yeah.
so crazy. It goes right to that movie.
It does.
Yeah.
The Curse.
I like that movie.
It's a good one.
That was a good one. Oh. So I spent so since we half recorded last night and then today I just spent some time. The book that I really wanted to order when I was searching, like this book actually came up, my algorithm came up to like a Blurry Creatures episode.
Oh, okay.
And so I ordered this book and it actually got here in time. But before I get into it's like a encyclopedia of fairies, I wanted to tell this really cool account. It's a story of a lady called Anne Jeffries, and this is written by Peter Marshall. Now I got this out of, I think this was actually from Belief Hole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've done several episodes that are really good on fairies and the portal connection, because there's like a fairy portal Bigfoot connection that seems to be like running through all of this. So this is really cool. It says Anne Jeffries and the Fairies, Folk Belief and the War on Skepticism in Later Stuart England. So this is like actually a paper.
Mhm.
But it says in 1696, a short but remarkable pamphlet was published in London. Cheap print had been a matter of the everyday in 17th century England, but the subject matter of this particular publication was extraordinary, even by permissive and eclectic standards of the later Stuart press. So it goes on to say its author was the printer and bookseller Moses Pitt, and the tract billed itself as an account of one Anne Jeffries, now living in the county of Cornwall, who was fed for 6 months by a small sort of airy people called fairies, and of the strange and wonderful cures she performed with salves and medicines she received from them, for which she never took 1 penny of her patients. So she was a girl from a poor family, and she was apprenticed as a domestic servant to substantial families in the parish of St. Teith, on the western edge of Bodmin Moor. So Pitt recounted that when she was 19 years old and sitting one day knitting in a garden, there had hopped over the garden hedge to her 6 persons of a small stature, all clothed in green, which she called fairies. As a consequence of this visitation, she fell into a lingering sickness and a succession of fits and convulsions, which made the rest of the household fear for her life. As at other times, she was so At other times, she was so energized that she became even as a changeling. So there's like the chain,
Yeah.
which is super creepy. But as her strength recovered, she began to display great devotion, going consistently to church to hear the word of God read and preached, and memorizing large parts of the sermons, though she herself was illiterate. Then she began to discover powers of healing. Her first patient was the mistress of the house, who had hurt her leg in a fall. Jeffries had prior knowledge of the accident from the fairies, who after the incident in the garden had continued to appear to her never less than 2 at a time, nor never more than 8 inches, and always in even numbers. She apparently, like, the news had spread like all the way from Cornwall to like London and all over. And so then she had people would like come and like try to get healing from her. Let's see here. So several days before they would reach her, she would know their identity and the manner and time of their arrival. In the meantime, she gave up the consumption of ordinary things, and from harvest time to Christmas was nourished. Oh, she didn't eat.
Oh, wow.
And so apparently she was, from harvest time to Christmas, she was nourished solely on special bread given to her by the fairies. She was also seen dancing in the orchard among the trees. Invisible to onlookers, the fairies danced with her. And so this is like a really, it's just such a cool account. But it goes on to talk about like, so basically like why this was written.
Yeah.
And so it says, beyond its colorful detail and extravagant claims, the pamphlet was remarkable in a number of ways. It was, so far as we can tell, the only English publication of the second half of the 17th century devoted primarily to the subject of fairies. So it's like an historical record.
Wow.
It was also noteworthy for the distinctive perspective of its author. Pitt's account was particularly autobiographical, for the family with whom Anne Jeffries was in service was his own, and her duties, including attending to him, who at the time of the alleged fairy visitations in 1645 to 1646, he was 7 years old. So he grew up to write this pamphlet. And so it says his account was part personal reminiscence, part historical curiosity. And then he also says, it says, but Pitt's motivation in publishing the story, which had made so great an impression on me from my childhood hitherto, was in fact neither public nor private nostalgia. He believed the material to be both topical and valiant in 1696. And to make the point, Pitt affixed his title page a quotation from a sermon which Samuel Barton, chaplain to the House of Commons, had preached before the members of Westminster earlier that year. And it says, all the works of providence are not alike. Sometimes for wise and good reasons, God has been pleased quite to alter the course of nature, as it were, to show himself to have a power above it. Divine providence was frequently invoked in the last decade of the 17th century. It had, after all, removed one king from English throne and provided the nation with a soundly Protestant replacement. So it's kind of neat because like he chose to reveal that at a time that was like basically going to kind of revive people's faith. Like I think this is when we're getting into like superstition. So it kind of like is trying to undo that. Like, well, no, wait a second. This is actually something that was kind of like miraculous. Like this woman healed people.
Yeah.
Had this insane encounter. And maybe it's not like outside of the realm of like what God will allow in nature. So it kind of ties back to, I just thought that was really cool because it's such an old account. And like kind of like unique and on the record, but it ties back to like the pagan roots of what we know about the folklore. And how, like, I think there's just like this misconception that it's just like this, they're all like these little creatures are always like terrible and evil. And it's like, well, a lot of it kind of says that they're sort of like the keepers of like nature, the keepers of these little realms that they appear in. It's kind of, I just found this like really fascinating. It's kind of like the best of like both worlds and explaining like, well, how can you wrap your mind around that? Like, you know, it's just,
I think we said it already that they're mostly benevolent creatures. The only time that they get irritated with people is when they're disrupting nature. You know, if they're like hurting the trees or hurting the forest, or like we talked about the one guy that has to mow around the little circular mounds where he thinks the fairies live because he doesn't want to like disturb their natural surroundings.
Yeah, like their little portal door.
Yeah.
Their portal door. Because we were looking for the connection with like all the fairy mounds and things like that in the portals, I found this awesome. So the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Fairies by Fritz Zimmerman. I was talking about him last night. Like he's the one that did all the like awesome research on giants. And
cool.
it's like over 700 stories and 200 illustrations of like the history of fairies. Like this book is insane. Yeah, this is really cool. This is the Pukwudgie.
Oh, I love Pukwudgies. They're neat.
Okay, so this is from Fitz Zimmerman's book, and it's called The Fairy Demons at Mounds State Park, First-Hand Accounts. So the Indians have legends of the Pukwudgies. 2 sites in Indiana fairies have been spotted. The most famous is at Mounds State Park, Henge Complex in Anderson, Indiana. The fairies are said to be 2 to 3 feet tall and are deformed goblin-like creatures. Ew.
Ooh.
Oh, this is cool. An amateur archaeologist, Paul Startzman, wrote a book entitled The Pukwudgies of Indiana, where he claims to have encountered these beings many times at Mounds State Park. Okay, so guys, if you're out there and you have a Pukwudgie encounter, we want to hear it so we can put it on the map. An older woman was interviewed while in a nursing home and recalled seeing fairies at Mounds State Park. She encountered them twice, once as a little girl and another time when she was much older. She described them as having high-pitched voices and speaking a language she couldn't understand. And then he has a picture here of Mr. Jim Campbell. He's a DNR officer at Mounds State Park, and he saw a 3-foot troll at the park. Trolls again.
I love trolls.
Trolls.
Every time we talk about something, it goes back to trolls.
We always find a troll connection.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, in a podcast interview, they also witnessed shadow people and knocking on trees. So this ties into the Bigfoot connection. So let me read the rest of this. It says the most credible witness was Jim Campbell, the DNR officer, and he says that they're still there. He apparently encountered the 3-foot fairy in the park in 2017, and they actually have like a picture of him standing by his truck.
Wow.
Oh, Campbell. He looks like my pop-up. The Indians, it goes on to say, the Indians have legends of Pukwudgies. Let's see here. The most, we already read that. Why is that twice? Okay, yeah, it has, I don't know why it has the same thing written twice. But so, yeah, the older lady and then Jim Campbell. So that's like the story of the Pukwudgies. Ugh. I don't really know much about them, but I know that they like tie in.
Yeah,
I guess
I thought it was a Native American lore, the Pukwudgies.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where I heard it. I think this has something to do with Superstition Mountains. We actually were talking about that last night. So there were 2 different races of little people that lived in and around the Superstition Mountains. And one group of them were very helpful, and they were just like, benevolent little creatures that just wanted to live their lives, and they were like, whatever, we're cool. But then the other group were like these tiny little warriors, and they would like attack people with like rocks and like sticks and like little arrows and little pointed things, and they were like warlike creatures.
It's like the brownies from Willow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so Timothy Renner, going back to like his book, it's called Where the Footprints End, and it's like high strangeness connections with Bigfoot, and he has a whole chapter on fairies. And this is really, his stuff is like so well researched, but he ties in everything with a Bigfoot, like how that all like ties in together. And he even has like hairy fairies. Like,
no. Well, that's what that thing just said. Hairy face.
Exactly. It says numerous researchers have drawn parallels between large hairy humanoids and the Fae folk, including author Patrick Harper, who wrote that Bigfoot shares so many attributes with fairies, he considers it a big fairy.
No.
Few, however, truly appreciate how deeply these motifs permeate Bigfoot lore. And it says, see, this is where I got the Anne Jeffries thing, because he says while many, so it was from this book and not from Lethal. But it says, while many texts and sightings describe shrunken humans in traditional regional dress, a significant body of folklore presents fairies as covered in hair.
Well, I think there's just so many variations on what they look like. I mean, and when you really think about it, like I think about what would ancient creatures look like that were here before us that we don't know about, like the giants and the little people. There had to be so many different species just like roaming. Like we have no idea. We have no idea what was out there.
And like, yeah, are they different? Like we're all different looking. Like humans are different looking. Like, do they have different?
I think they were just like, yeah, depending on what climate they were in, you know?
Well, and it kind of reminds me, because you know how some people, like when they have ghost encounters or like paranormal encounters, some people will see like Victorian like ghosts in places.
Well,
and
I
then,
think
like,
that's your like traditional ghost,
right?
Because that's
right.
when ghost stories became popular in the Victorian era, so they're all Victorian.
Yeah.
But people see modern ghosts as well. I would like to see an ancient ghost. Wouldn't it be cool to see like a caveman ghost? Just like hanging out.
I like it. Actually, Tommy Cullum. All right, he's got to come on because he has a. I don't want to like tell his stories, but he like saw like a Shakespeare entity.
There you go.
Like yeah. Oh my gosh, crazy.
And people see Native American ghosts.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
more ghosts than just Victorian ladies in dresses.
I know, but I love that. There's like a meme out there where it's like, how come can we just bring back the Victorian lady ghosts?
Yeah.
Oh no, the Susquehannock of southern Pennsylvania so feared a race of short, magical, hair-covered creatures that they adorned war shields with their likeness. That's crazy. Oh, German settlers called the creatures the Albelwitch, the apple snitch. Oh,
neat.
Due to their fondness for stealing and tossing fruit. Apples. Belschnickel.
Belschnickel.
Oh, Belschnickel's coming.
Man, all this stuff is real. I'm telling you.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, I'm telling you, the stuff, like, that's why I kind of want this to just be like a little primer, because the things that I've like found, it's people are like starting to see things again.
Yeah.
And the one article that I read, it went into I wish I would have like pulled it up, but it was so cool. Like it went into like why they stopped like showing themselves, and he has like this really good supposition that it was like actually providential, like because at that time people were so afraid that they just like were prayerful, and then like God was like, all right, like knock it off, like don't show yourselves anymore. Like, so it's this you're scaring the straights. You're freaking everybody out.
I'm scared.
We get it, like, but he tied it again to like these are nature like guardians. They've been appointed kind of like these watchers of this realm. So it's really fascinating the way that these things are kind of like tying in. But now I think he didn't go in to make the supposition, but it just got me thinking, like, I wonder if it's because people are just like, so people are just believing like everything is just here now. You know what I mean? Like we've got aliens, we've got more Bigfoot disclosure, like everyone's sort of seeing all this stuff.
We're also destroying our planet. So maybe they're coming back as a warning saying, you guys are messing everything up. Can you stop? Because we're all going to be dead soon with nowhere to live.
He went into that. Like he went into like the stewardship aspect of it. Like where it's like, you know, and that ties into like the Native Americans again, where it's like I definitely believe that was like God's purpose for a lot of tribes is just like being good, like being a good example of stewardship, like the original way that it should have been for us before everything went downhill. Oh, my voice.
We're also like so populated everywhere, so like maybe these things don't have anywhere to hide anymore because there's just people freaking everywhere.
just like, I mean, in the woods too. Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
Like we're in the woods a little bit more now as well.
Yeah.
But there was I'm trying to-
Logging and camping and hiking and getting lost.
I would totally get lost in the woods. Oh, Mersquatch. Then he goes into mermaids. I mean, this is like
What?
it's wild. This book, I told you, like I ordered it, like, and that like to like the actual. I like having a book so I can mark it up
Yeah.
and you know.
Yeah.
But I was so interested in this chapter that I just downloaded it as well. So I just like here you go, Timothy Rauner. Take my money. Do the research. Take my money.
Do the research.
What does he say? Oh, so I already did the Apple Witch. It's just so fascinating. I wanted to get into have you ever heard like accounts of people with their horses? Like horses
No.
and fairies? Oh, it's like
No.
about how their manes are braided.
Oh, I have heard that. Yeah.
It's so cool.
I
It's
heard
so
a really
cool.
good story on I think it was called the Spooked podcast. Do you ever listen to that? By
Yeah.
Snapchat? That's like one of my favorites.
Yeah.
There was a story about a horse farm where the horses, when they would go get the horses in the morning, all of their manes would be braided.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love
and they
that.
weren't hurt or anything. They were just, their manes were braided.
This is called Believe It or Not. Today's equestrians regard tangled manes as a side effect of not regularly brushing horses, but Western Europeans of the past blamed fairies. Jeremy Hart writes of an 1890 fairy knot found in a mane in Dorset, England. This was reported in the 1890s from Pottern Farm at Verwood on the edge of Crownbourne Chase, where the farm's cart horses were found damp and disturbed in the mornings. The carter shrugged his shoulders and said, "Oh, the fairies must have been out again." He would point to the tangles in the horses' manes, which were so knotted that they had to be cut out when combing would not release them. These were the footholds that had been tied by the fairies so that they could keep their precarious perch on the horse's neck. Oh, that's cute.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then he gets into witches and wild Indians. So this is funny. He just kind of like goes back and forth. The First Nations people of the Carolinas blame knotted manes on wild Indians, their fairy counterparts. Like so much other folklore, the Bigfoot community eagerly adapted this phenomenon from the September 2011 Western Bigfoot Society meeting minutes. Oh my gosh, how do we get involved in that?
Yeah.
I want to go to the Western Bigfoot Society meeting. So this is author Don Monroe thinks braids are a sign of higher intelligence in the wild people and indicated a great dexterity. 3 plaits are arranged one over and under another, interwoven and twisted together, often lengthened by including tail hairs, and it makes a possible rein to hold on from riding. So that's crazy. Like,
yeah,
Bigfoot's like braiding, like not to make it look pretty, but to like make to make an actual rein and then riding horses. That's wild.
Yeah, that's neat. I think I've seen something like that in Game of Thrones, where the Dothraki were braiding their horse's hair and using it to hang on.
Yeah, they did do that.
He did. George R. Martin used a lot of like folklore to create those. To world build, you know.
Yeah, so did Tolkien. Yeah.
Yeah, they all did. All the great authors do.
I love that. So this is going to be like further. He has like a whole Woman in White tie-in with Bigfoot in this Timothy Renner book. But he says, women in white were closely identified with the banshee and often seen wandering fairy forts. Given that some traditions held fairies were spirits of the deceased, women in white were often conflated with ghosts. At Ireland's Lothgar, the fairy being Finn, or White Lady, drugged someone beneath the waves every 7 years. In some traditions, the Scottish Kelpie, or water horse, appeared equally often as a beautiful lady or a large hairy man. Oh my gosh, it's just like all the same. There's so many ties I never even thought of. Like all the different connections. He really does like such a good job of researching all of it and then connecting the dots. Like I think the more and more we hear stories and we see the connections, it's just gonna that's why I'm so glad that we kind of built the website the way that we did. So it's just like, let's see the broader picture of how everything is sort of interconnected.
Yeah, the website's great.
Because it totally is. Like,
Well, I don't think
connected.
I even realized how much everything was connected until we started talking about all of these things. And every time we talk about one topic, it goes into the next topic and the next, and everything is connected.
Yeah.
You don't realize
Yeah.
that until you start speaking it out loud.
I think that's what people are seeing now, because it seems like it all comes back to trolls.
And bridges. Trolls and bridges.
Oh, I'm sure I could dig up a bridge story somehow.
Oh yeah, definitely with the fairies.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, we didn't even get into like the Coddington thing, but that's just like the way that I always thought when I was a little girl, like those little Victorian, that fairy story. Lisa Frank and the unicorns and the fairies. Next we're gonna have to talk about unicorns.
Unicorns.
Yeah.
Ancient beasts. Dragons.
I don't know. Somebody ruined it. Like I was like, there's a connection. Like they talk about unicorn in the Bible, but people are like, oh, it's just a rhino, and I'm like, why can't it just be?
Why can't it be a beautiful white unicorn with a flowing mane?
Why can't that just be what Jesus comes back on? Stop it! This is I'm doing this.
He comes back in a rainbow robe, riding a white unicorn with its hair all braided and his little fairies flying around.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot's
Jesus is
pulled
coming
over there.
in power. Right? Like nothing. Like we would never even imagine that. Dare to imagine.
Yeah.
You interpret Revelation the way that you interpret it, and I'll have mine. You keep Christmas in your way, and I'll keep it in mine. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. So a couple of things that are coming up. I guess we'll wrap up the fair. We've been trying to do this for like at least 14 days now. So we're gonna wrap up our fairy primer and keep it
rambling now.
Yeah. I know. The fairies are getting into our brains, but there's just so many directions that we can go in. I think that's just it. Like there's so many directions.
It's such a broad topic.
Which I didn't think it was going to be when I picked this. Or like when we we went into it from like the portals, and it's just like, no, this is like deeper than we could have ever thought, because apparently I'm just buying research materials. Like,
well, like I was thinking, like I think fairies are just a part of all of those little creatures that people see, and I think maybe whatever you're seeing, you could put the name fairy on it. You know, it doesn't have to have wings, it doesn't have to be beautiful, it could be a little tiny hairy creature. It could be like a little troll looking thing. Like I think they're all kind of part of like the same realm. They just different depending on where they're from. Just like
I think that's it. Like it's either that they're like good or they're bad, and it's just like all these little creatures in between. It just the main point is like, are you good or are you bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's good fairies, bad fairies, good Bigfoot, bad Bigfoot. But so coming up, we've got next week we actually have a guest. That's gonna be fun. So we're gonna record
I love having
with him. Yes, we'll have a good we have a really good guest coming on to talk about his Bigfoot experience, and then Crystal and I are going to do a Victorian Christmas episode. So if you have any good Victorian ghost stories or Victorian cookie recipes, we are going to attempt to record actually like doing something other than being in our houses or on a porch. So
live
God
from the kitchen.
God willing, the technology will work, or I will murder it.
I want to do live from the kitchen in my apron.
I know. Yes. So send us your recipes, send us your stories. We want to hear them. Go to the website. The website is live. We're really excited about that. So yeah, we've got some fun stuff coming up. So I guess that'll do it. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I'm Christina, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sasquatch and Sourdough is so much more than just a podcast. We're a community of kindred spirits, united by our curiosity and fascination with the extraordinary. And we want to bring you into the conversation. So whether you've had a brush with the unexplainable, seen something that you can't quite wrap your head around, this is your space. We invite you to join us as we break bread and break down the barriers between the known and the unknown. If you want to share your story, you can email us at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram. Until next time, remember, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen.